Hey guys, this is Miss Harlequin, and in this video we're going to be learning our new vocabulary words that come from chapters 1 through 4 of The Outsiders. Alright, so the first thing I want you to do is take your vocabulary sheet and you're going to rate your knowledge of our new words. The first word is content. Second word is unfathomable. Third is incredulous. The fourth is roguish. The fifth is nonchalant.
The sixth word is gallant.
The seventh word is resigned. The eighth word is contemptuous. Ninth word is rueful. And the 10th and final word is dumbfounded. All right, so let's start with the word content. Now, the word content, it looks like the word content, which is something different, so we don't want to mistake it. The content is the topic of something. When you are using it, though, and pronouncing it a little differently, when you're talking about being content, which is an emotion, it basically means that you're satisfied with something. It's usually like, I guess it reminds me a little bit of mediocre, because when you say something's mediocre, you're just kind of saying it's meh, it's not great. So being content is usually something is less or different from what you really want, but you're content with it, you're satisfied. You're willing to accept something as just being enough. Now, it can have a negative connotation, especially the way I just described it, but it also can be used in a positive way. I've heard many people say, oh, I'm very content right now. It's like, it's just good enough, I'm satisfied. The rainy weather spoiled our plans for the beach, so we had to content ourselves with a relaxing day at home. Or you could also use this word as an adverb. So you can describe something that you're doing, like smiling, and say that you're doing it contentedly. The baby smiled contentedly after he had finished his eating. So since it's an adverb, you're basically taking the verb and you're asking yourself, how did they smile? And the adverb tells you how it was done. So here, the baby's smiling in a satisfied way. That's probably one of the easiest ways to use this word in a sentence. Think about a sentence where you want to use the word satisfied and then just replace it with the word contented. All right, our next word is unfathomable. Unfathomable is an adjective, so it describes anything that is impossible to understand. I found my brother's behavior to be unfathomable when I caught him throwing delicious peanut butter cups in the garbage. I found his behavior to be impossible to understand. After 5 hours, we still could not figure out the unfathomable riddle. The riddle was impossible to understand. Or you could also say that in Batman, the Riddler will often give people unfathomable riddles that end in death. So again, in both of these sentences, the riddle or riddles are being described as unfathomable. Again, it's an adjective, so you have to use it to describe a thing, or maybe even a person as being unfathomable. All right, our next word is incredulous. If you're incredulous, that means you can't or you won't believe something. If you tell people about those aliens you met the other night, they'll probably give you an incredulous look, which might involve their eyes being wide, their mouth gaping open. Incredulous is the opposite of credulous, right? Or another form of that word is the word credible, right? When something's a credible source, it's reliable, it's believable. So incredulous is you can't believe it. Credulous means believing too easily. Both words come from the Latin word credere, which I'm probably not pronouncing right, but it basically in Latin means to believe. So again, incredulous is an adjective. You use it to describe anyone who is feeling or showing a lack of belief. Many people were incredulous. They were in disbelief that such a small fire could have caused so much damage. Incredulous is stronger than the word skeptical. If you're incredulous of something, you refuse to believe it. But if you're skeptical, it just means that you're doubtful, but you could believe it. You haven't just 100% ruled it out completely. So if someone insists that your best friend is actually an underworld spy, you'll probably look at them with incredulous anger. You 100% almost feel like you can't believe it. Skeptical, you could be convinced. All right, our next word is roguish. To be roguish is to be up to no good, which could mean being untrustworthy like a criminal or playful and mischievous. if someone gives you a roguish smile, he's totally flirting with you. All right, so once again, roguish is an adjective. You're showing something in a playful way that you've done something wrong. Now, you can also use this word as a noun. Sometimes people will describe somebody as a rogue. Somebody as a rogue is somebody who is playful, mischievous, but not necessarily like a supervillain. When my brother was caught in the midst of a prank, he smiled roguishly and ran away. All right, now you can't trust someone who acts roguish in the bad way, like the roguish crook who picks your pocket while telling you how lovely you look. On the other hand, you might like someone who acts roguish in the second sense, which means playful and mischievous. Being roguish in that way might mean playing pranks, telling jokes, being a little wild. So a rogue, it could be somebody who is a little villainous, but again, it's not going to be as extreme as a villain. Villain usually has a very strong connotation where they're not really redeemable, they're doing bad things to hurt people. A rogue might be doing bad things just for their own good, but their motives are not necessarily to hurt people or to treat people badly. It's just they're a little bit selfish, they're a little bit self-motivated. Han Solo, for example, is considered by many to be a famous movie rogue. He's a smuggler who isn't above breaking the law, and he flirts with Princess Leia in a very roguish way. But he's not a villain. He's not a bad guy. All right. Our next word is nonchalant. So if your friend is acting cool or unconcerned or in an indifferent manner, you can call them nonchalant. Like when he saunters by a group of whispering, giggling girls and he just nods and says, hey. So he's acting nonchalant. He's acting like he's not concerned. He's, not influenced by what they're doing. Indifferent means like you don't care one way or the other. So meh, right, is what somebody who's indifferent would say. And it's definitely, there's an air of cool when you're being nonchalant. It's kind of like, oh yeah, this stuff doesn't really influence me. I'm above it. I'm too cool for this. So again, nonchalant's an adjective. You describe people who are being relaxed, calm. It's in a way that shows you don't care, you're not worried about anything. So, of course, this reminds me of another one of our vocabulary words, the word blithe. All right, somebody who's blithe is uncaring, carefree. Nonchalant is similar, except that blithe doesn't have the connotation of cool that nonchalant does. The team may have been somewhat nonchalant at the beginning of the season, but they now know that they need to work hard. Sometimes a nonchalant person acts indifferent or uninterested, but they really care very much. If you give a girl a nonchalant smile, you definitely want her to notice you. Even though it begins with nonchalant has no positive form. So chalant is not a word, although I have heard people sometimes try to use it as a word.
Okay, so our next word is gallant. If you volunteered to deal with removing a huge hairy spider from your bathroom ceiling, your whole family would be grateful for your gallant actions. The adjective gallant means heroic or brave. So again, it means showing courage or very brave. They failed to reach the summit, but they made a gallant attempt. They made a very courageous or brave attempt. Now, in the past, gallant was used to describe a man's behavior toward a woman, especially if he saved her from something or helped her with something that she was unable to do on her own. Now, it can still be used that way today, but it more often describes any kind of bravery. All right, our next word is resigned. Resigned is a noun. It's feeling or showing acceptance that something unpleasant will happen or will not change. So you could talk about how you're resigned to your future, or you've resigned yourself to the fact that you're never going to meet the man of your dreams. He was resigned to the fact that an expensive vacation would have to wait. So again, if you're resigned, you kind of accepted something that is terrible. You're just like, all right, this sucks, but I've accepted it. Our next word is contemptuous. So if you insult someone or you dismiss them in a hateful way, you're being contemptuous. The difference between being hateful and contemptuous is very subtle, and it often involves disdain. So when you feel disdain for someone, it's because you think maybe you're better than them and you're looking down on them a little bit. So you can see that in the comic here. This waiter has disdain for the person.
He thinks they're too poor to order at that restaurant. The restaurant's too good for them. So he's speaking to them in a contemptuous way, as if he's talking down to them. So being contemptuous of someone or something means that you're combining that deep dislike for them with condescension. Someone, when they're being condescending to you, again, is talking down to you. So to insult someone is a good way to show contempt or condescension. So you can be contemptuous of someone when you say insults like, you disgust me. That's one of the simplest and most contemptuous things you can say to someone. You're stupid is another. If you can think of something that both hurts a person and suggests that you're looking down on them, like you've got your nose in the air, you think you're better than them and they're lower, then you've come up with a contemptuous thing to say. So again, when you're contemptuous, it means you're feeling or showing deep hatred or disapproval. Usually you might give somebody a contemptuous look, a contemptuous smile. Your remark might be contemptuous, or your attitude might be contemptuous. Scholars were contemptuous of the theory until recent scientific developments proved it possible. All right, our next word is rueful. If your elaborate magic trick goes awry, and instead of pulling a rabbit out of an audience member's shoe, you set the shoe on fire, you might give a rueful smile. Rueful basically means apologetic or remorseful. So when you're being rueful, you're showing or feeling regret for something that you've done. Now, since it's an adjective, you can describe the person as being rueful. You can describe their actions as being rueful, like a rueful smile, or your rueful words. The adjective rueful sincerely expresses regret. However, rueful also has that connotation of it being a little bit humorous, kind of like you're aware. You're not like crying. That's not what rueful means. It's almost like you're laughing at yourself a little bit, like, oh yeah, I messed up. You're admitting it and you find the humor in the situation. So rueful will show up a lot in descriptions of like remorseful grins or apologetic smiles. It's not really a sad situation when you're rueful. If you're sorry about something you've done and you can still laugh at yourself, you feel rueful. It actually comes from the verb to rue, which means to regret, which is why people say you will rue the day. You will live to regret the day. You'll rue the day you met me, or you'll rue the day you did something terrible. All right, our next word is dumbfounded. Dumbfounded is an adjective that means very shocked or surprised. It does not have anything to do with the person being dumb. We were dumbfounded. We were shocked when we turned the corner and saw an elephant running down the street. All right, so now it is time to write our own example sentences. Take each of the words. Make sure you use it in a sentence with context clues. So you want to have the 5 W's. You will get bonus extra credit if you write 2 sentences that use the word. And then you'll also get bonus points if you use any previous vocabulary words in your sentences. So make sure you bring this sheet to class tomorrow for our class activity.